Coming up, the Nets are dominated by the Charlotte Hornets during their regular season opener. I'll tell you why fans rooting for a top draft pick can rejoice and why they should be encouraged by Brooklyn's rookies right now.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to the Locked On Nets podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. I'm Erik Slater, Brooklyn Nets beat reporter for ClutchPoints.com. Thank you for making me your first listen of the day. The show is 100% free on all those great platforms. And on today's show, I'm going to be recapping the Nets' 136-117 blowout loss in their season opener down in Charlotte. I'll dive into what went wrong, whether the game is a sign of things to come, and how Brooklyn's rookies fared during their debuts. Joining the pod now, we got Lucas Kaplan of Nets Daily. And Lucas, it's going to be a long season, man. It's going to be a long season. The Nets are blown out 136-117 against the Charlotte Hornets squad that, frankly, doesn't have very high aspirations this year. And, Lucas, my thoughts before I give it over to you, these were a lot of my, I wouldn't say fears, these were a lot of my expectations for this season realized. And look, we're going to talk a lot about big picture, what we think this means moving forward, what we think it could signal. I think we need to preface it by saying it's only one game. Like the NBA, it's an 82-game season. Things change. But I think that there were a lot of things that I was looking for, I was expecting going into this regular season opener that came to fruition. Obviously, the inexperience of these Nets rookie ball handlers, and I think that that is going to be a hindrance for them winning now on both ends of the floor, and I think that we saw that. Just an overall feeling of inexperience, and then also I just felt like there was a lack of leadership out there tonight. I mean, defensively, it was an abomination. We're going to get more later into what we think specifically went wrong defensively, but letting up 136 points to a Charlotte Hornets team that has good players, but obviously not one of the better teams in the league. And this is a Nets team that last season often, or when it made its money, it was always based on effort. A lot of times on the defensive end of the floor, we know Jordi Fernandez is a defensive-minded coach, and that was just abysmal. And then, I said the inexperience of the rookies, and I just felt a lack of leadership out there. And you talk about this team going from guys last season, last season, you look at the leaders, the alphas on this Nets squad. You have Dennis Schroeder, you have Cam Johnson, you can throw Dorian Finney-Smith in there. And now you go from that to Cam Thomas is your alpha ball handler. Michael Porter Jr. replaces Cam Johnson. You go from Dorian Finney-Smith to Terrence Mann. And I just thought that was going to be a steep drop-off on both ends, or just from a leadership standpoint. And that was the case tonight. And it felt like this was a Nets team that really didn't have any identity or anything that they did well tonight. So what were your impressions, and what was your main takeaway when you look at how this game unfolded?
Yeah, I wonder if that lineup and the rotations we saw were really a precursor to how Jordy's going to manage this season, or if that was the result of solely a game in which the effort and defensive connectivity was abysmal, and early in the third quarter, Jordy had enough. And he, threw out Tyrese Martin and Jalen Wilson in place of Cam Thomas and MPJ as sort of a, I'm fed up, this is unacceptable. And that lineup with those two guys in there kind of got it back to a reasonable deficit, and you thought, this might become a game again. But beyond that, Nolan Traore not getting into the game until the fourth quarter. Drake Powell not getting in the game to the second half. All 13 guys that were healthy played. Is that going to be the kind of season this is from the jump and the whole way through, where it feels very much like a team without serious aspirations? I mean, we know they are, but is it just going to feel like that the whole season? And how much of that goes back to one of your main points, which is, I guess, lack of leadership, lack of structure, just a feeling like this team is just out there to either get better in the case of the rookies and the young guys, or collect checks in the case of the veterans. And I know that might sound extreme after one game, but it just did not feel like they really had a purpose, a collective purpose out there tonight.
Yeah, and that was like last season when this Nets team was exceeding expectations. It was led by like these veteran guys who were really playing hard on both ends of the floor. And that goes back to the point I was making. Just like the beginning of the year last year, like Dennis Schroeder was playing great offensively. And I've spoken ad nauseum about how I think that going from Schroeder to rookie ball handlers, exclusively rookie point guards, was going to be a huge hindrance to the Nets competing. But also, Dennis competed defensively, man. Like CJ played really well offensively. He competed defensively. Those guys were the head of the snake and the leaders. And we saw once Dennis left, the Nets were, astronomically worse. And obviously, like, that has to do with its offensive impact. But I think that there's something to be said about the way that Dennis carried himself on the court, the way that CJ carried himself on the court. And I think a lot of that defensively is really important, and that feeds to the rest of the guys. And I think when you have two guys, like if you point to the alphas on this Nets team right now, or for at least the first half of the season, it's Cam Thomas and it's Michael Porter Jr. And those guys, what does it say about those two guys when Jordi Fernandez effectively pulls the two alphas and is like, I've had enough in game one of the regular season?
I mean, that was horrific. It was, how bad was MPJ on defense?
Oh my God.
It was, I don't want to just sit here and rag on him and, come up with creative ways to insult his lack of effort on the defensive end, although that would be very fun, but because it is just one game. But you understand the worries now, or at least it gives credence to the side of fans and people that are like solely maximizing the odds of attaining a high draft pick is not always the best move. And on a night like tonight, you see why you kind of believe that to be true in a sense, because it just does not feel like the defensive product that was put out there can lead to anything good. It just doesn't feel like that. You can see the dark side of that. Like I said this last season, and I think that I'm still firm on my stance that the Nets didn't do enough to maximize their lottery odds last season. I think they botched the tank. And overall, I think them doing everything they can to maximize that pick, I think that should be priority number one. And I'm firm on that. I'm not going to move off that stance. You look at this Nets team and you look at some of the other teams they're going to face throughout the season, you don't have anything until you have that guy. They need to get that guy. And I know it's a lottery. Like, we're not going to have that conversation, but you need to maximize your chances at that. So, like I said in my intro, like tank supporters rejoice. If you're rooting for that, like this was a good game for that. But having said that, there is a dark side to that. And that was something that I prefaced, a lot last season, of the fans who said, like, get rid of all these veterans. Like, we can go 0-82 and all that. And I'm like, hey, like, I don't necessarily disagree with you, but don't act like there's no downsides to that, because there clearly are. And I think a lot of those were realized, or at least you got a glimpse into what those could be tonight. I mean, that's how bad MPJ was on defense tonight, that we're philosophizing about the ethics of a tank in one game. That's how bad it was tonight. I mean, listen, it wasn't all on him. And just, by the way,
nobody defended well. Nobody defended well.
We'll dive deep, as you said, into the X's and O's, or, dive into them a little. But the point of attack defense became just as bad as the weak side rotations and stuff. I mean, Charlotte was just walking to the paint. I mean, and some of that, like Yegor and Ben are going to get, they're going to kind of have to go through with these welcome to the NBA moments. But it was everybody. It was everybody in every position. And I mean, it just doesn't, I don't know. It's on opening night. It's a hard thing when you are a fan or a follower or probably a player on a team to be like, is this what it's going to be like for 81 games? I mean, it's hard to just put the math first when you're thinking about a lottery that is 7 months from now.
Yeah, that's why teams don't want to tank. It's an extremely undesirable thing to do, especially in a market like New York. But the Nets are doing it, and I think that a lot of people that I talk to argued strongly that putting Cam Thomas and Michael Porter Jr. at the head of the snake is a pretty effective way to tank. And hey, it was one bad game. Cam and MPJ aren't going to combine to shoot 7 of 24 from the field every night. Like they'll have their offensive explosion games when they keep them in. But if you're talking about the defensive end of the floor, and look, everybody was terrible defensively. So I'm not pinning it all on MPJ.
Day'Ron was okay.
Okay, yeah.
I'll say that.
Most of the team was awful defensively. So I'm not pinning it all on MPJ and CT. But if you're a fan who either is rooting for the tank or a fan who is worried that the Nets were going to, exceed expectations the way that they did last season, I would say that the leaders of the team set the tone, especially on the defensive end of the floor. And when your two top players, perceived top players, Michael Porter Jr. and Cam Thomas, are guys that just do not give good effort on the defensive end of the floor. And I'm not saying it was just them again tonight, but I'm saying those guys set the tone. Whether or not they're good defenders, like those are the perceived leaders of the team. And on the night like tonight, I mean, the defense for MPJ was like a joke throughout the preseason. I mentioned it after every post-game pod in the preseason, and I said, look, it's the preseason. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. If it continues into the regular season, I'll let you know. Game 1 of the regular season, Michael Porter Jr. and Cam Thomas were so bad defensively that Jordy, it seemed like, in frustration, pulled them and went 13 deep. And would he have done that anyway?
Right. That was my question. Like, is this how much should we look into the rotation? Because that's how, again, that's how bad it was tonight. And I don't get, and like, the tanking thing is not an individual choice by the players on the team. And that's why you can feel frustrated when you're watching this. It's like they were the most aggressive pick and roll defense in the league last year. They're always up, they're a 2 on the ball, which means everybody else has to rotate and be aware and fly around. And when you look at a game tonight, it makes you think like, what was MPJ working on in the preseason? Like, what were they doing in practice to have that tonight? I get Drake Powell being looked off and it leads to a dunk, but I mean, you're watching this game and you're like, oh wait, if they're playing at the level and the guys they trust to rotate around it are rookies, Terrence Mann, Cam Thomas, and MPJ, are they going to be the worst defense in the league? Like, is that likelier than not? That's how bad it was.
We'll get into this conversation more later when we close it out, but I do think that is a real worry. And the defensive drop-off for a team that, like, they weren't great defensively last season, but they had games where their defense and their effort kept them in it. But we'll get more into the X's and O's of it and how this personnel probably will not maximize what Jordy is looking to do defensively at the end of the show. But a lot of these listeners, a lot of you guys are obviously here to hear about the rookies. The Nets rookies made their debut, at least 4 or 5 of those guys. So we'll get into them, what we liked, what we didn't like from Yegor Dioman, Ben Saraf, and co. We continue Locked On Nets after a quick break. If you're still overpaying for wireless, it's time to say yes to saying no. At Mint Mobile, their favorite word is no. No contracts, no monthly bills, no overages, no hidden fees, no BS. Guys, I said yes to making the switch and getting premium wireless for just $15 a month. Mint makes it simple. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can even bring your own phone and keep your same number and contacts. Guys, I love that you're getting the same quality service you had before, but for a fraction of the price. The setup is easy. You keep your number, and then you're running in minutes. Guys, ready to say yes to saying no? Make the switch at mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. That's mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to $15 per month. Limited time new customer offer for the first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. Guys, let's be real. Making excuses doesn't solve anything. We've all heard them before. I'm tired. It happens to everyone sometimes. It's just stress. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support, and that's where Rugiet comes in. Rugiet.com offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed treatments for ED designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. Guys, Rugiet makes it easy to get started. You just connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online. No awkward waiting rooms, no in-person appointments. If prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly straight to your door. The process is fast, simple, and private, and it's all handled by real doctors. It's about confidence, connection, and getting back to the moments that matters. Visit rugiet.com/LockedOnNBA to get 15% off your first order. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNBA. And don't forget to use our code LockedOnNBA so they know we sent you. Rugiet, stop making excuses and start making moves. Coming back from the break on today's Locked On Nets episode, recapping a blowout Nets loss in their regular season opener to the Charlotte Hornets, 136-117. But one of the main stories, obviously, or the main story outside of the Nets tank this season is these Nets rookies. And 4 out of the 5 made their debuts tonight. 2 really got the lion's share of the minutes, and that was Yegor Dioman and Ben Suraf splitting the point guard reps. So let's start with Yegor Dioman. He had 14 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 4 of 6 from 3 in 22 minutes, 4 of 6 from the field also, did not attempt a 2-point. And, I think it was a positive debut for Yegor. Like, I think this is really like what we saw in Summer League, somewhat a continuation of it, and somewhat what I expected, like from the sense of, a major positive, the 3-point shooting looks for real. Like the 3-point stroke, it was 4 of 6 in this game. He hit some deep ones. He hit a step back. He hit a lot of catch and shoot. You look at, through 3 Summer League games and now 1 preseason game, 1 regular season game. So 5 appearances with the Nets. He's 17 of 34 from 3. So he's shooting 50% on high volume. Now, it's only 5 games, but we heard all this stuff from the Nets about how he shot the cover off the ball in the offseason. They are in the pre-draft process. They have no worries about his shooting. He seemed to back that up thus far. Now, there are the concerns, obviously, about what he's going to do as a ball handler and how those limitations could impact the rest of the game and whether he's going to get there. Because while we saw him handle pressure pretty well, I would say, against Toronto in his debut, it was a struggle today. Like we saw him, he nearly lost the ball and got stripped early on one of his first possessions. Then he did get stripped after that. And then, there just wasn't a lot of off the dribble juice. And that has been something that has been extremely limited thus far, through his appearances at Summer League and these 2. So what do you see from Yegor in this game? And overall, do you think that this performance, you come away encouraged with it, or are you more focusing on some of the concerns that you've had?
I'm encouraged by it. I like that he doesn't get a 2-point field goal in the box score, even though there's a very questionable
2-point field goal attempt,
left-handed hook floater thing.
I was like, who keeps the stats? Because I saw that like Yegor got 1 drive to the basket, and it was one of the only times that he touched the paint, and he faded away, which you don't like to see, and then he missed so badly that it went to, I think, Dayron or Nick, and they laid it in. He got an assist. I'm like, who's keeping these stats? Because that was clearly a shot attempt. But go on, Lucas.
But I would be encouraged just because the shot looks very clean. And there were a couple times where he was able to sustain a dribble into the paint, and I think the Nets very clearly think that in the modern NBA and with a good offensive coach and with better screeners than Nick Claxton and Dayron, although Dayron's okay, you will be able to scheme paint touches for Yegor. And he is a very similar physical profile to Cam Johnson. Very similar as a ball handler. Yegor's a little longer, but when you look at the perceived lack of, especially coming into the league, or when Cam Johnson was 19 years old, and still at Pitt, not explosive, not bendy, could be pushed off their spot. And yet you saw last season, the Nets were constantly able to scheme up opportunities for Cam Johnson to get into the paint, right? To get by the level of the screen. And with Yegor, he has these passing gifts that will turn those opportunities into really good offense. And you saw maybe, I think, 1 or 2 of those tonight. A kick out pass, or maybe a guy wasn't there. But if the shot is real, he's not exactly the player Cam Johnson is with better passing, but I think tonight was just another step in the right direction of seeing the vision, even though, Cam Johnson made leaps and bounds as a ball handler from age 19 to age 28 and 27, and Yegor will have to do the same thing because the ball handling can't be, getting stripped on his way up the court. But it was a positive step in terms of you can kind of see the vision the Nets have for him, and it doesn't seem so unreasonable.
Yeah, a way that I've been looking at it, and you can interject if you think it's flawed, is that I felt like the 3-point shooting, if that comes around, like that would lend itself to him having a floor. And the ceiling is going to depend on the development as a ball handler and some of those other things. And that's assuming that the 3-point shooting comes along. But if you look at it, like based off what you're saying, like Cam Johnson, not a 1-to-1 comp, but if he has the 3-point shooting and he's shooting like high 30s on high volume, can do it off the dribble, can go off the ball. Like I think that'll obviously open up some of the things that he's doing like on the ball and off the dribble, but he can also slide to the wing. And then he has this size defensively where you hope he has some versatility on that end and he can fill out a little bit. And like that, like if Yegor's shooting like high 30s from 3 on decent volume, like he's going to be a rotation player in the NBA, if not a starter on like a good team. Now the ceiling, and can he be like a top 3 guy on a good team? I think that that's going to depend on a lot of the, ball handling stuff, creation stuff, like off the dribble juice, that coming along. And that is a big question right now. Like it's 5 appearances with the Nets, 3 summer league, 2 with Brooklyn here. And I'm not going to draw any grand conclusions, but these were like knocks on him coming into the draft was his lack of shake, his lack of twitch, his lack of strength, the lack of like self-creation and some of that stuff. How would that translate against bigger NBA defenders? And you look at the numbers, like through these 5 appearances, 3 summer league, the preseason, and then this one, he's taken 38 shots and 32 of them are threes. So like the paint touches and all that stuff, it hasn't really been there at all. Like he's made in those 5 games, he's made 2 2-point field goals. Yeah. One of them was that dunk against the Magic Summer League, and then one was like the backdoor cut that he had against Toronto. And like this is a guy whose biggest gift coming into the NBA, he was perceived as the best passer in this year's draft class, and that inability to get downhill and touch the paint has been a hindrance. Like I don't know how many assists he's had total. He's had 6 or 7 assists through 5 games, I think. So,
I mean, I wish there was that quote during Summer League where someone on the net said, well, we're not worried about his shot diet and, his lack of primary creation opportunities. This is not how we plan to use him throughout the season. Something, do you remember kind of what quote I'm talking about? It was, am I getting the gist right?
Yeah, it was Steve Hetzel. And we asked him about why Yegor was spending so much time off the ball and, what he's going to need to do to be more effective initiating offense. And he said add strength is going to be huge. And then also, this is not how we envision necessarily using him. Like it's going to be a different role. And then there was also that Keith Smith article where he talked to a net front office person. So it was both of those things.
And is that article essentially relayed the same sentiment. And I just didn't get it at the time because, I mean, it's fine, and he has a long career ahead of him, but it's not all about the way that the Nets are using him. It's not solely an issue of like function in the larger sense. And tonight you saw, Yegor is going to have to try to handle the ball and get into the paint, and he is really, really going to struggle very mightily. And I, wrote pre-draft, I wrote post-draft. My worry for him is my swing skill is not the shooting. It's all of that stuff. And I like the way that you look at it. If the shooting really is good, then that does give him a floor. But the swing skill is how much he's going to be able to leverage that passing. And we'll see it throughout the year. And the only thing you can really say from today is like getting matched up with Colin Sexton of all people in his first game is just the attack dog on the perimeter is very funny. He smelled blood in the water.
Yeah, and a guy who's just like just standing there is like at Yegor's waist and just like living under his dribble. Yeah, like that's a tough first matchup.
It's tough. It's
closing
tough.
It out on Yegor, and I would just like the stuff, it's gonna look ugly, like some of the stuff. Like when he's trying to get downhill, when he's trying to do some of those things, it's gonna look ugly. He's not always gonna be able to do it because he has kind of like a beanpole of a screener and Nick Claxton a lot of the time, and also he doesn't have the tightest handle. But I do feel like there were times where he can get downhill, even in transition. There were a few times where I just want to see him go and try and just get down there. And it's like, I'm not going to compare him to Ben Simmons and like give Nets fans Vietnam War flashbacks, but I want to see him start to try to do those things. And I think that he will. Like, I'm very confident that he will as the year progresses.
He will. He was a little tentative in semi-transition and a couple times with the ball, and he'll That part, yeah. As long as he's trying stuff, Nets fans should be
because he's gonna
pleased.
have to. He's gonna have to do that. He's gonna have to attack with purpose. And once he does that, and teams start respecting it, that's when his playmaking is really going to show. And I also think that the Nets will put him in some sets that they didn't necessarily tonight that will get him more openings. But Ben Surratt was the other Nets rookie who played a ton in this game, and he had 8 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists. 2 of 7 from the field, 0 of 3 from 3, 4 of 6 from the free throw line. He played 20 minutes. And I think it was also like a lot more or less what we've seen from Surratt. We saw some of the craftiness. We saw him getting downhill. We saw him probing, able to get to the rim and score in the mid-range. The three-point shot looks ugly. I'm glad that he took 3 tonight, though, in 20 minutes. I think that that's a positive. But you see the craftiness and you see the NBA skills that are there. He got blocked at the rim a few times. He had some turnovers, but I came away from this saying there were some plays in this game where I said okay, Ben looks the part, at least offensively. And he had some reps on the ball where he's doing things frankly, that Yegor just isn't probably going to be able to do for a while. Now, Yegor has the 3-point shooting. It's if we could just put these guys into a room and we could take Ben's craftiness and, downhill off the dribble juice. We could take Yegor's 3-point shooting and make them into one player. We'd have one really, really high-level prospect, but we don't right now. But what do you think about what you saw from Ben?
Yeah. Well, that and Nolan Traore's speed, and you'd really have one big.
We could combine all 3 rookie point guards into one player.
Yeah. When Mr. Josiah gets, the fusion invention and brings it over here. Yeah, I thought Ben was again really what we have seen during the preseason and summer league. When he took that little one-legged floater runner in the paint, I expected it to go in. When I saw him trying to snake that pick and roll for his first bucket in the first half, I expected a good result. Now, you really saw against Moussa Diabate and and Kalkbrenner, who's just huge. You saw the struggles, right? In terms of he doesn't have a lot of explosion and punch downhill, and that is going to get him into trouble in the NBA, and in addition to the 3-point shot. But you really kind of weren't surprised, I think, by his game, which is a compliment. And, he seemed like he knew where the ball needed to go and is going to be a fine offensive organizer for this, very bad team. But he's at least going to be able to provide them a structure and some paint pressure, it seems like.
Yeah, and that's a major positive. And I think that as the year goes on, we're going to see some more come out of his game. I think he'll get more comfortable. There were a few plays where I saw him get downhill, and it looked like he had the right read, and he was just a tick off on the timing and a tick off on the delivery. But I think those things will become cleaner as the year progresses. And I think the 3-point shot, he took 3 threes today in 20 minutes. I think that's probably the highest volume that he's had in any game thus far, summer league and the preseason and now the regular season. And if he continues to do that, if he can start taking some off the dribble, because, they're giving him a lot of space. They're working under screens. They're giving him a lot of space on the perimeter. I'd like to see him just pull up and take some of those. And that's something that he did with Razio Far So I think he'll start to do it. I think he just needs to gain some confidence and get into it. Now, the other 2 rookies that played, Nolan Traore and Drake Powell, they played 8 minutes apiece. Nolan hit a 3, which was nice to see. Drake Powell had a nice transition layup. I think you saw a lot of the fluidity defensively, but they played a little bit. I'm not even sure if those guys were planning to get in the lineup or if it was more just Jordy Fernandez rage quitting Cam Thomas and Michael Porter Jr. So not going to talk too much about them, but we'll see. They got in. It was nice. Drake turned his ankle a little bit. Well, hopefully he's healthy, but when they get some more extended run, we'll get into them. But I think we do need to answer the question of, is this Nets defense going to just be completely an abomination? And how could that affect the rest of their season? So we'll get into that when we close out Locked On Nets after a quick break. When I found Skims was making underwear for men, I was intrigued. I've heard so much about their quality from friends and family, so I had to give it a try, and let me tell you, it lives up to the hype. I've always had issues with underwear, fit, comfort, or just finding the right style for me. Skims changed all of that. Their men's line offers something for everyone, from boxer briefs to classic briefs, all designed with the perfect balance of comfort and style. Guys, I tried the Skims 5-inch stretch boxer brief, and I'm hooked. These are perfect for my active lifestyle. They move with me, never lose their shape, and stay in place all day. Whether I'm working out or just running errands, they're the most reliable underwear I've ever owned. Plus, the lightweight material feels amazing, almost like you're wearing nothing at all. Guys, shop Skims Men's at skims.com. Let them know we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select my show in the drop-down menu that follows. Coming back from the break, closing out today's Locked On Nets episode, reacting to a blowout loss in the Nets season opener down in Charlotte with Lucas Kaplan of Nets Daily. And Lucas, this defense, like, it was, we went over it a little bit at the top, but it was atrociously bad. And I think we did a preseason pod, and I think I joked with you, like, Lucas, what are your expectations for, the Cam Thomas, Michael Porter Jr. starting five defensively? And the other early returns didn't look good, but it wasn't just them. Like, it was Terrence Mann, Zaire Williams at the point of attack, just getting fried. And that's rookie, obviously. Like, the rotations are going to be a little bit of a struggle. And this is something that I said on my last episode is Jordi Fernandez's D in this blitzing scheme. Like, the Nets blitzed, I think it was 14% of their screens last year. It was the highest in the NBA since 2021. And when you do that, there's a lot of back-end rotations. Like, there's a lot of scram switching and all these different things that are really involved. And when you have 5 rookies and you have Cam Thomas and Michael Porter Jr., it might be a recipe for disaster. And honestly, I regret it because I might not have given this topic enough time leading up to this regular season opener. So what are your thoughts on, is this just going to be a disaster defensively?
I mean, we got the worst, I think. As bad as the roster looks on paper defensively, it's tough to imagine the weak side defense, the point of attack defense, and the transition overall effort, any of those being worse than it was today. So
I didn't even, sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off. I didn't even mention the Nets got outscored 23-5 in fast break points tonight. And it was 18-0 in the first half. But go on. I had to throw that stat in there.
I mean, the Moussa Diabate block, and then where he just like it's like that. I mean, yeah, those are, you're running suicides in high school for a play like that. I mean, so it's tough to imagine those 3 areas: point of attack, weak side, transition. Any of it, like, it felt like the worst case outcome for all those tonight. But in the half court, Cleaning the Glass said Charlotte put up like a 94th percentile offensive rating in the half court today. You start to look at the roster and the way they're going to play, and you're going to be like, well, how can they survive with this batch of guards and wings trying to rotate and apply low man, resistance? The best play anybody made today was Cam Thomas came over and fouled Ryan Kalkbrenner.
Got a rotation.
He was only late by that much, and he could have stolen the ball. I mean, that's how bad it was. I mean, could it be again, they don't really have an incentive to win, but you wonder if Jordy can really stick with this if it's going to be this bad. But then again, today was barely about scheme. It was just the effort overall.
I think that's a good point to leave it. I think this scheme is going to be rough. When you have Cam Thomas and Michael Porter Jr. sharing the floor with one, if not multiple rookies, a defensive scheme this involved, having that type of personnel out there is not a recipe for success. But when you get outscored 23-5 in fast break points like that, and the turnover margin was not that drastic that you would think that was the case, that's one, two. Also, just point of attack defense. None of these guys are elite point of attack defenders, but defense, guard your yard, have some pride.
I mean, Zaire has to be a little bit. I said this was the worry with him, where it's well, what position is he actually defensively? Who does he guard? What's his best role? But it cannot be just change direction, move. I'm right by you. I mean,
yeah. That was a lot. That was a lot of guys tonight. I mean, you look at it tonight, I saw that with Zaire a bunch of times. I saw it with Terrence Mann. I saw it with Tyrese Martin.
The rookies.
Guys were just getting blown by. Obviously, Cam Thomas and Michael Porter Jr., same thing. But when you look at this wing rotation, Dennis Schroeder, he guarded at the point of attack last season. Dorian Finney-Smith, not a lead at it, but he tried.
He tried.
These guys, I think they will try. I think that tonight that's why I don't think the defense is going to be this bad. I think that there are scheme limitations with this personnel that I think are going to make it really difficult, and that might lend itself to Jordy moving off of this. But I do think that these guys are going to guard better at the point of attack in transition because Jordy's just not going to tolerate this.
I mean, and in terms of one thing on the scheme that I want to know real quick, they're going to need to rotate and help at the rim and fly around, right? Putting themselves out of position. If you take Drake Powell out of this off this team, they're the least athletic wing room in the league, right? I mean, if let's call the wings, the guys guarding off the ball, Cam Thomas, MPJ, Terrence Mann, Tyrese Martin, Jalen Wilson. Those guys have all probably combined for 3 dunks in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
That sounded mean when you said it like that.
It's true. I mean, okay. Listen, the game against the Cavs on Friday will be like down to the wire for some reason because that's just how early season NBA basketball works. It'll be like 89-87.
Yeah, but I think there's limitations defensively, but I do think that Jordy Fernandez last year showed an ability to get more out of guys a lot of the time, and I think that he'll continue to do that. And I'm really interested, like, as the year progresses, like we saw, like CT played 25 games last year. Obviously, Michael Porter Jr. wasn't there, but those guys are going to have to show more on both ends of the floor. Obviously, like, we didn't get too much into their offense. Like, they shot poorly tonight. It is what it is. But on the defensive end of the floor, like, if those guys are going to be the leaders early in the year, like, they're going to have to show more on that end. Otherwise, Jordy isn't going to tolerate it, and we'll see. And CT, like, I did a bold prediction show yesterday, and I wrote an article today. Like, I think that I've been pretty clear. Like, I think this is trending towards the trade. Like, I'm in my gut, I feel like that's where it's going. The Nets are probably stuck with Michael Porter Jr. for a little bit. So I want to see how that dynamic plays out and how
Don't sound so excited.
No, I mean, I like MPJ as a player, like, in some regards, but there were clear questions about his want to on the defensive end, his want to as a rebounder, some of these things during his time in Denver. And if this season, like, it's a tanking year, if it starts to spiral, if he starts to be like, I'm getting my points and all that, I want to see how Jordy reacts to that. So that's going to be really interesting to see. But Lucas, appreciate you taking the time as always. We got the regular season home opener coming on Friday against the Cavs. So we'll see how that plays out. Maybe it's close, like you said, because that's just how things go with the Nets sometimes. But we're going to have you on for much more episodes throughout the regular season. So appreciate you taking the time as always, man. And I'll talk to you soon. That does it for today's episode of Locked On Nets. Hope you guys enjoyed the talk with Lucas. If you do not already, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Nets on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, whether Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you enjoy the content, take a second, smash the like button, leave a comment, leave a 5-star review. Anything you can do to engage is much appreciated. We got the Nets regular season opener on Friday, so we'll have more coverage of this game, also moving into that game when I'm back tomorrow talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.